The story begins as an ugly boy who gets abused by his own father for looking like an evil cockroach can only apologize to his drunken father for not living up to his expectations, and his mother sits nearby without caring. This is a dream from the past of our main character named Tōka Mimori, and he wakes up to find his class president getting teased. The bully is Oyamata, and he refuses to give class president Ayaka her book back. Oyamata teases her more about reading some of the romance novel to everyone, and all the other students just ignore the bullying. The class is on a field trip, and Tōka can't help but notice how all his classmates are just keeping their heads down to ignore the bullying, while the class elites laugh away. The teacher, meanwhile, doesn't really care about anything and just sleeps the entire time. Tōka thinks he might look pretty cool if he intervened, but he remembers that he's just a nobody and he wouldn't accomplish anything. Ayaka eventually gets really frustrated, so Tōka surprisingly stands up to Oyamata and tells him to give Ayaka her book back. Oyamata is impressed that Tōka finally standing up for something, but he still refuses to give the book back, and now he wants to pick on Tōka as well. Just then, one of the elites named Takuto Kirihara tells Oyamata to stop messing around because he is repulsed by all the arguing. Everyone thinks Takuto is really cool for taking command of the situation, and Oyamata apologizes to Ayaka. Oyamata is still annoyed about Tōka standing up to him, so he starts picking on the quiet kid in class. Finally, the teacher tells him to stop and explains that Oyamata can bully people when he's not the teacher. Tōka actually agrees with all Oyamata because standing up like that is unlike at all, and he assumes that he only took action because of the dream he had. Just then, all the students are shocked as they are teleported to a strange place. Some lady calls them heroes from another world and introduces herself as a goddess named Vicious. She explains that in her world, whenever the Great Demon Empire appears, they summon heroes from another world. The Demon Empire was defeated by heroes 200 years ago, but the terrifying evil has just resurfaced. These students are heroes to her, so she asked them to lend her their power. The students don't believe that they have been transported to a different world and just assume that they are dreaming. They start to think that it's just a prank, or even worse, they may have all lost their lives in a car crash. Everyone begins to panic, but the teacher tries to calm them down by pointing out that he is there. He is useless though, and just says that they should listen to the goddess. Tōka takes a look around at all the old stuff, and that coupled with the golden-eyed goddess makes him believe that there really are in some other world. Takuto wonders what will happen if they don't agree to fight the Demon Empire, so the goddess reveals that they won't be able to return to their world. The only way to do the reverse summoning ritual is by using a special element known as a Demon King's essence, and there are only two known ways to obtain it. One is by obtaining the heart of the Demon King, and the other is by collecting the Demon King's essence that is released upon the defeat of the Demon King and putting it into the crystal in a necklace. Oyamata gets annoyed about being forced to fight the Demon Empire, but the goddess begs for their help as they are the heroes of salvation. Ayaka points out that they are just normal humans and pretty far from being heroes. The goddess assures them that they have power that the others do not possess, but Tōka can't help but think that something isn't right. Oyamata's sick of the prank already, and Tōka realizes that the goddess is what is upsetting him. Just then, the students are horrified when a prisoner is brought out to be eaten by a monster. The goddess eviscerates the monster with a fire spell, but the students are still in denial and just want to believe that her attack was CGI. The goddess changes the subject and declares that it's time to reveal the hidden skills of all the students. All the students take turns touching a crystal ball, and when it lights up, it means that they have a special ability. The summoners are shocked when Oyamata's lights grows brightly, and it means that he is an incredible power. Oyamata changes his mind on the entire situation, and now things are being a hero sounds great. Takuto up next, and the sorcerers can't believe what they see when his power shatters the crystal ball. This means that he is an S rank, which is the ultimate rank. Oyamata is an A rank, so he points out how Takuto is better than everyone no matter what world they are in. Ayaka an S rank here as well, and the goddess is shocked when they find that there is a third S rank among the heroes. Normally they are lucky to just get one, so she declares that this is the best summoning ever. Tōka is next, and he doesn't know what it means when he makes the crystal glow purple. He also notices that his glow is the weakest side of everyone's. Tōka wants to know what rank he is, but the goddess just ignores him. Tōka realizes that he's a no one again, just like in his old world, and he decides that he's fine with it. Just then, the quiet kid in the class makes the crystal glow with a black color. The goddess explains that this has only happened once before when the dark hero touched the crystal, and he ended up being one of the strongest A-rank heroes of all. The quiet kid laughs like a maniac and declares that he knew his time would come soon. Afterwards, the goddess shows everyone how to check their stats. Tōka notices that his stats seem pretty low, and he has a unique skill called Abnormal States Endowment. Unique skills can only be used by the individual that has them, and the heroes can awaken more later. Oyamata gets tired of the explaining and he wants to start doing hero stuff. The teacher tells them to be more respectful to the goddess, but Oyamata tells them to quiet down because the teacher's only a D-rank hero. The goddess then declares that there's only one ritual left to do, and she shockingly calls a Tōka to step forward. Tōka has no clue why, so the goddess explains that he's the lowest rank of all the heroes that have been summoned and he is an E-rank. Past experiences taught to summoners that the weakest hero always holds back the others. Because of this, they decided to start getting rid of the weakest hero every time they did a summoning. Eventually, though, this started scaring the other heroes, so the summoners decided to do something different instead. They decided to grant even the lowest-ranked hero one chance to survive. They put them to the test by teleporting the weakest hero to some ruins. If they survive and reach the surface and they are allowed to live freely, Tōka wonders how dangerous the ruins are, but no one really knows. They have sent countless criminals and heroes to the ruins, but none have returned. These ruins are called the Ruins of Disposal. Tōka tries to get out of it by explaining that he has a unique skill, but the goddess explains that stats endowment skills like his are pretty useless. They have a low success rate, and even when they work they don't do much and their duration is too short. The goddess points out that his stats are also really low, and even if he levels up, they want to improve much. Tōka defends himself by pointing out how unfair it is to have been summoned only to be punished, but Takuto tells him to just go already. All the others tell them to hurry up as well, but Tōka feels a bit better when the kid named Yasu wonders if he is okay. Yasu is the quiet kid in class, and he was always kind to Tōka. Things have changed though, so Yasu reminds Tōka that he is the lowest rank. Yasu refuses to talk to such a low rank, and he calls Tōka Mr. Trash Hero. Tōka couldn't feel any worse, and the goddess begins the ritual. Every hero was granted a unique item when they are summoned, but Tōka is some pathetic-looking leather bag. The gem on the bag you grow when magic is poured into it, but that's all it does. Just then Ayaka surprisingly stands up for Tōka, but the goddess makes her pay by knocking her out. The goddess tells everyone to forget Tōka because he is a goner. She considers the heroes to all be winners, and she tells them to watch the tragic fate that awaits losers like Tōka. Tōka finally shows some determination as he becomes furious and uses a parallelization spell on the goddess. It doesn't work though. When she reveals that as a goddess she has a dispelled barrier active constantly, it provides total defense against status endowment spells. She bids farewell to the trash hero, but everyone is stunned when Takuto uses an attack spell. He apologizes though because he was just testing it out. The ritual continues and everyone is just glad that their time won't be wasted anymore. The goddess wonders Tōka has any last words, but he just begins to cry. Just then we see Tōka talking to his younger self. He is sobbing and his other self tells them that no matter how much he represses it and pretends to be a harmless person, he won't be able to hide his true self forever. He tells himself to show everyone his true colors and to show them the true self that he has been suppressing the entire time. Tōka's true self is finally revealed when he ditches his weak persona and he starts cursing at the goddess. Everyone is shocked and Tōka declared that if he makes a Beck alive, they all better be ready for him. Tōka's teleported to the ruins, but it's pitch black, so he pours magic into the gem and begins exploring. Just then Tōka barely manages to dodge an attack from a monster and he runs for his life. Tōka shivers as he runs because he can tell that the gap in power between him and this monster is huge. Tōka is terrified and he tries to hide the glowing gem because he thinks that's what's attracting the beast. As he runs, Tōka realizes that he isn't actually afraid. The emotion he is feeling is frustration. He has no weapons and all his stats are garbage. His skill is also useless, so Tōka determines that this is where his life ends. However, out of nowhere Tōka finds some determination. He declares that he wants power and uses a paralyze spell to stop the terrifying monster right in its tracks. The surprised Tōka runs for his life and thinks about how the goddess said that stats endowment skill rarely worked. Tōka wonders if it was a miracle, but his attention quickly turns to the new monster in front of him. Tōka can feel its hostility and it's overwhelming. Tōka wants to live though, and he surprises himself when his paralyzed skill works again. This makes him realize that using his skill the first time wasn't just a miracle, and he begins to wonder if his ability is something completely different from the magic in this world. Tōka all out of the boost the heroes were given, and he barely has any of his own magic power left. He fears that it won't be enough to use his skill, but he's surprised when he's able to cast a poison spell on the monster. His success rate seems to be really high, and it doesn't even look like the monster's rank matters. The duration seems to be pretty long as well, and Tōka tells the monster not to be upset with him because he was trying to take his life too. Tōka completely out of magic power now, so he wonders what will happen if he tries to use his stats endowment skill again. Just then the monster from before reappears and Tōka wonders if someone will show up to rescue him like in the movies. However, he thinks about how everyone treated him so poorly earlier and he remembers how he was beaten as a child. Tōka's years of frustration reach its peak and he realizes that he's just a background character, so no one is coming to rescue him. Tōka knows that he can't rely on others, so his only option is to fight to survive. Tōka's inner self wants to conquer everything, so he declares that his fight for survival starts now. Things continues, we see Tōka uses Paralyze on the beast, but it doesn't work, so his system explains that he cannot apply the same skill to a target repeatedly. He desperately searches for another ability and ends up putting the monster to sleep. Tōka can't spam the same skill on the same target, but he can stack multiple effects. So he finishes the monster off with poison. Tōka's feeling pretty fatigued, so he realizes that consuming his natural magic power must be getting him. Just then Tōka horrified as a swarm of monsters appear before him. Tōka determines that he will have to go all out and risk using all his magic power if he wants to survive, so he uses Paralyze over and over again. It works, but he's getting dangerously close to being completely out of MP. He is beginning to faint and things get worse as even more monsters arrive. Tōka realizes that he can't worry about how much magic power he has left, so he uses Paralyze several more times. Keeps working, but there are several more monsters left and Tōka at his limit. Tōka refuses to just give up and tries to squeeze out one more attack. It's not looking too good, but Tōka receives a stroke of luck as he just happens to level up. His magic power is restored, so he quickly uses Paralyze again. Just in time to save his own life, Tōka realizes that he got a huge burst of experience from that less monster just now losing its life, and he gets excited because this means he can fight again. He uses Paralyze repeatedly, and this skill eventually rises to level 2. Tōka wonders how the leveling system works, but he quickly realizes that he needs to pay attention to the battle. Just then Tōka notices that he can now target multiple opponents at once, so he paralyzes a ton of monsters. Tōka determines that the ugly Vicious might be the only thing his unique skill doesn't work on because his success rate in the Ruins of Disposal has been 100%. There are no target marks on the monsters further back, so this means that his status element skill has a limited range. Tōka then goes through when poisons the paralyzed monsters. They seem pretty harmless now and Tōka just sees them as experience points this way. Tōka checks his stats and it shows everything multiplies when he levels up. His stats MP was high already and it's increasing dramatically. Just then all the monsters begin falling victim to Tōka's poison and he levels up several times. He puts several others to sleep and his sleep skill rises to level 2. Tōka levels up even more when more monsters collapse and he becomes confident that he can eliminate any monsters that appear. Tōka prepares to continue the battle, but he is shocked when the monster simply ran away from him. Tōka then finds something to wear off a corpse and decides that he needs to find food and water. His search doesn't find anything, so he decides he will try and eat the monsters. His poison skill has worn off, so they should be safe to eat. The monster's skin turns out to be too hard to cut through, so Tōka decides to slice out its eye. It doesn't look appetizing at all, and it's even worse when he bites into it. He just ends up coughing it up, and Tōka wonders if the monster's body is just filled with poison. Things are getting pretty bad and Tōka determines that this place really is made to end the life of anyone thrown in it. Tōka is starving, but he notices that the light on his bag has changed color. It's heavier than usual and Tōka is shocked when he finds soda and some jerky inside of it. Soda has never tasted so good and Tōka digs into the food as well. He doesn't know how his bag works and he doesn't know if it will produce food again, but he's grateful that it happened. A while later we see that Tōka has just finished taking on a giant army of monsters. They are paralyzed and now he's just waiting for his poison to take effect. Tōka sits atop a giant dragon and determines that it will be any second now. Just then the army of monsters start to collapse and Tōka begins leveling up even more. He acknowledges just how gruesome the sight is and begins to tear up. Just then Tōka has a memory from his childhood where he dreamed about getting revenge. Tōka knew that he would have to eliminate his father before he eliminated him. Luckily for Tōka, his aunt and uncle eventually took him in and they gave him some normalcy with the warmth of family. They taught him kindness and empathy and Tōka thought that he had managed to become like them. However, Tōka feels nothing now and he's not even shaking in terror over taking so many lives. Tōka is starting to scare himself but decides to just accept who he is now. Tōka buries his old self and leaves it behind as he now accepts his new self. Tōka then easily wrecks an eye monster and he pours magic into a gem next to a mysterious door. The door opens and he finds that 2 people had taken their lives inside the room. Tōka is shocked when he finds all the gems they had on them, and he assumes that he might need them when he returns to the surface. Tōka apologizes to the pair for taking their gems and he goes to explore the other rooms. After checking out a couple hundred of them, Tōka finds a room that is taking a lot more of his magic power than the others. When he gets inside the room, he finds another corpse and this one left a letter. This person's name was Anglin and he was known as the Hero of Darkness. Tōka remembers that the ugly Vicious brought this guy up as the strongest of all heroes. His letter reveals that the ugly Vicious sent them there by force. He was no longer needed and they just considered him an eyesore. He suspected that he would perish soon in this prison, so he left something behind in case anyone ever found him. Tōka curses the ugly goddess because she said the demon empire was evil, but she is much worse. Tōka doesn't think he's much different though because he just wants revenge and doesn't care about saving the world. Tōka finds what the dark hero left behind and it's a book on the forbidden arts. It's filled with recipes for magical items and weapons. Tōka also finds a scroll of forbidden magic, but he can't read the writing. The famous mage went through the effort to hide it, so Tōka determines that it must be a powerful spell. If he can decipher it, then it might be an ace in the hole against the goddess. Just then Tōka is shocked as one bloody page warns about the Soul Eater. It's the being that took everyone's life in the ruins. Tōka continues exploring and finds a door that seems like it won't open without something being put inside a locking mechanism. Tōka determines that it's the exit to the surface, but this also makes them realize that the Soul Eater must be nearby. It must be pretty dangerous. As even the great hero couldn't defeat it, Tōka has raised his level as much as he could up until now and he just hopes that he can defeat it with his skill. Nearby, he finds a face and it turns that an orb on its head must be what he needs to open the final door. His face is clearly the Soul Eater, as he can't even move near it without it shooting him. The Soul Eater doesn't leave any openings, but he needs the orb out of its head to escape, so Tōka will have to risk his life to get it. Tōka has to speak a skill name to activate his inflict status ailment, and it has to be loud enough too. There is no time to think though, as the Soul Eater begins moving on its own. This monster will repel the strongest hero, and it's the reason for the 0 survival rate in the ruins. This beast definitely rules the ruins, which means that this will be Tōka's final fight for his life and the ruins of disposal. Outside, we see that someone has appeared to wait by the ruin. Inside, Tōka's surprised that the Soul Eater isn't going after him, and it starts puking something out. This substance turns into disgusting monsters, and Tōka realizes that the Soul Eater is showing him how its victims looked just before losing their lives. Their Soul Eater clearly wants to see how he reacts, and Tōka determines that this is how it entertains itself. Just then the Soul Eater reveals itself to Tōka with a loud scream, and Tōka must paralyze the goon monsters. Tōka must poison them next, but he can't get himself to do it because they remind him of the people that lost their lives. Tōka declares that he's nothing like this monster because he could never use human souls as toys. He can't use his poison on things that look like humans, and Tōka declares that he is still a human himself. The Soul Eater seems amused by how much it tortures him, so it creates more of the creature. Tōka tells them to stay back, and he can tell that the Soul Eater is really enjoying his despair. The horrified Tōka begs for the creatures to get away, and the Soul Eater just laughs like a maniac. Tōka is completely hopeless now, and he begs for someone to save him. Tōka can tell that the Soul Eater is reaching peak enjoyment, so he shockingly completely changes his composure and he paralyzes the Soul Eater. Tōka explains that he could tell that it was the best moment of the Soul Eater's life. It had found its ultimate prey that it could torture for max enjoyment. However, this meant that it let its guard down and it wasn't able to notice that Tōka never once lowered his left arm. The beast collapses from parallelization, and Tōka explains the one fatal flaw possessed by those that are arrogant in their strength. The moment they convince themselves that victory is inevitable is the same moment they give rise to their greatest foe, and that is overconfidence. Tōka's paralyzed skill rises to level 3, and he reveals that he was just acting the entire time. He then explains that after being taken in by his aunt and uncle, he tried his best to become harmless. Tōka tried to become normal, and he tried to become kind. He even managed to fool himself and ultimately forgot who he really was. However, the kind of background character that he became clearly still had a lot of hostility deep down. Tōka poisons the soul monsters and explains that he felt nothing towards them when the beast created them. He is just meeting bloodlust with bloodlust and ending their lives. Tōka had the lowest stats to ever enter the dungeon, but he's grateful for it because it means that he was underestimated, and it is what allowed him to survive. As the Soul Eater rises in pain, Tōka mocks it for losing to a weak human that was sent to the dungeon to be disposed of. The Soul Eater desperately tries to get away, but this just helps him more. He learned that his paralyzed skill causes additional damage when his victim tries to move. Tōka finally poisons the Soul Eater, and the skill rises to level 3. Tōka puts an end to the fight with his sleep spell, and the souls that the Soul Eater was using appeared to thank Tōka. They were watching him throughout his time in the ruins, and the couple hopes that he will make good use of their gems. Most importantly, they thank him for defeating the Soul Eater. The Dark Hero is there as well, and he tells Tōka to get revenge on the goddess. Tōka knows that he is obligated to, but he wants revenge against the goddess for himself. Tōka takes the hope from the Soul Eater and uses it to open the exit door so he says goodbye to the ruins. The story continues. We see outside students are eliminating monsters so they can gain experience points. Oyamata chases a wolf and Takuto is pleased with his progress as he reaches level 18. Yasu, the once quiet kid, now watches the monster screaming agony, and he laughs like a maniac. Some girl named Asagi intimidates another girl and expresses concerns that their class is probably going to fall apart soon. They have a lot of big egos and being assigned classes hasn't helped. Asagi is sure that the students will start to split into factions, so she wants this timid girl in her group. This girl is only a D rank, so there's no way she will make it into Takuto's group, and Asagi predicts that Ayaka will live long enough to form her own group. The timid girl's name is Kabato Kashima, and Asagi tells her that she will soon find herself not fitting in anywhere if she doesn't join Asagi's group. Asagi believes that if they defeat the Demon Empire and make it back to their world, then what they do in this world might benefit them. It turns out that the goddess has assigned a test for the students that requires them to eliminate monsters. Kashima hasn't completed the assignment, so Asagi has some girls bring out a monster to help Kashima. Kashima is hesitant, but Asagi reminds her that she will be disposed of like Tōka if she doesn't eliminate the monster. Kashima was horrified, but she has no other choice, so she slays the monster. Asagi congratulates her on passing the test and announces Kashima has officially become a member of her group. Kashima feels absolutely horrible, and she remembers a time when Tōka rescued an injured cat. Kashima feels horrible after eliminating the creature, and she apologizes as there was nothing she could do. Elsewhere, Ayaka regains consciousness and she feels the pain from when she was punched by the goddess. Ayaka goes to speak with the goddess about Tōka, but the goddess explains that there's nothing that can be done. The ritual to dispose of the weakest heroes is a firm policy at the kingdom, and the goddess pretends to be remorseful as there is nothing she can do. Ayaka is shocked though when the goddess reveals that the ritual is still ongoing. While Ayaka was sleeping the days away, all the other students departed on a test to determine if they can eliminate a monster. Several have already failed though, and they have been disqualified. The goddess continues to act sad about it all, as she explains that those who cannot fulfill their duty as heroes must take their leave. Ayaka expresses her displeasure about how the students are being handled, but the goddess reminds her that they must dispose of those that are worthless. Ayaka reminds the goddess that she is an S-class hero and declares that she will do her duty to make up for the students who couldn't clear the goddess's test. However, in return she wants the goddess to call off their disposal. The goddess accepts and apologizes for punching her earlier. She excuses it by saying that she had to calm Ayaka down from her hysterics, but now she wants them to get along. In the dark forest, the girl that was outside of the ruins runs from some pursuers. The sword guy named May gets Bladens and his groups are close to catching her, and we learn that they are known as the Holy Watchers. Tōka finally returns to the surface and looks at his stats. He learns that he can dismiss paralyze at will and he can make his poison non-lethal. This means that he will be able to avoid eliminating targets that way. Tōka decides that he needs to find a sword and someone to act as a tank to handle the front line for him. Just then Tōka finds some slimes and the group seems to be picking on one of their own. Tōka hopes that the one getting bullied will stick up for itself, but there's no hope for him as he is severely outnumbered. Tōka feels bad for the little guy, but he is shocked when it pushes his bullies back. Tōka intervenes to paralyze and poison the bullies, and he notices that he can change the settings on his abilities. He dismisses the effects and tells the bullies to scram, leaving only the little slime. Tōka leaves it paralyzed, and he tells it that he was really impressed by how it stood up for itself. Tōka then tells it not to attack him, and he sets it free. Tōka says farewell to the little slime, but it just keeps following him through the forest. Tōka can tell that it's an outcast just like him, and it clearly plans to keep following him. Nearby, the princess is exhausted from running away, and she realizes that this is how the Holy Watchers do their hunting. Back with Tōka, see that he is teamed up with the slime, and he's using it to watch his back. Tōka reads the book Angling Left Behind, and he learns about an experiment to strengthen monsters. They are forbidden arts, and it even describes how to craft a solution to enhance slimes. Tōka makes it very clear to the slime that he's on a quest for revenge, so following him will mean that this is their goal. Tōka asks the slime if it's okay with that, and the slime is totally on board. Tōka names of Pigamaru, and the little slime has no issue with it. Tōka is determined to get his revenge by any means possible, so he won't hesitate to use forbidden magic and arts. Elsewhere, the princess realizes that she won't be able to escape the Holy Watchers, so she decides to use something she didn't want to. She offers her sleep as a sacrifice, and after a short incantation she transforms into what she calls a spirit regalia. Nearby, the Holy Watchers run into Tōka and they decide to rob him. Maggots would rather test his new sword on Tōka, so the others tell him to make it quick because they have to go after the princess again. These guys see some pretty disgusting stuff about what they're gonna do to the princess and any other girl they find, so Tōka gets upset. They know this Tōka backing away from fear, so Tōka starts begging for his life. Maggots goes to end Tōka's life, but everyone is shocked when Tōka paralyzed them. Tōka is glad to see that his status ailment skill is effective on humans, and he tells the thugs that they're not even close to being as intimidating as the monsters in the ruins. Tōka isn't actually afraid of these guys at all, so he calls them scumbags. Pigamaru is upset as well, and Tōka decides that he won't be bothered if he ends the thugs' lives. He has already decided that from now on he will meet Bloodless with bloodlust, which means he's prepared to take human lives if he has to. The thugs realize how terrifying Tōka is, but it's too late as Tōka poisons them. Tōka can send someone else nearby, and we see that the princess is getting nervous. She no longer senses the Holy Watchers, so she fears that they might be planning something. Just then she is startled as she senses a different person. Their presence isn't terribly strong, but it's very unsettling, and even the spirits are afraid of them. Just then the princess attacks, but Tōka appears behind her and paralyzes her. Tōka sends turn 10 to attack, but he sends something else in her and became curious. He's only keeping her paralyzed as a precaution, so she wonders what he wants with her. Tōka simply explains that he's from this area, so he wants her to fill him in. He will allow her to move her mouth, but he warns that he will paralyze her again if she tries anything fishy. In reality though, Tōka cannot stack paralyze and he's just bluffing. Tōka allows her to move her mouth only as he's still skeptical of her. He has been through a lot, so he doesn't trust strangers so much. The princess agrees to answer his questions before she wants to know where the group of 4 men are. She is shocked to hear that Tōka eliminated them, so he wonders if they were her friends. Her shock is for a different reason though, so she explains that those 4 guys were the Holy Watchers. They were very powerful, so she wonders if Tōka had allies helping him. Tōka refers to Pigamaru when he says he has won an ally, but he doesn't tell her anything about him. The princess then sensed any falsehood when Tōka answered her question, so she decides to answer his questions as honestly as she can. She is also grateful for him saving her life, so Tōka explains that she doesn't seem like a bad person. They both agree not to pry too deeply into each other's lives, so Tōka begins with his questions. The princess reveals that the force there in the south of the kingdom, and Tōka's next question is about the scroll he found. The princess can tell that it's an ancient and unique script, but she can't read the writing. She does know someone that might be able to read it, and this person is a witch. This witch possesses a vast knowledge of the forbidden in this world that she was deemed dangerous. Tōka would like to meet with her, but she can only be found in the land of the golden-eyed monsters. The only problem is that this place is incredibly dangerous. The princess doesn't feel like she has repaid Tōka enough for saving her life, but Tōka says that they are even. The princess is really nice, and she reminds Tōka of his aunt, who was too nice for her own good. Tōka tells her that the parallelization will wear off in a couple minutes, but he can't guarantee her safety in the meantime. The princess is fine with it, so Tōka wishes her safe travels and he leaves. He explains Pigamaru that he doesn't take pleasure in ending lives, so he will only do so within his own rules. Tōka can't be sure that the girl won't attack him after she is freed, so he's counting on Pigamaru to watch his back. A while later, Tōka arrives at a city and pretends to be a mercenary answering a call to conquer some ruins. He is allowed to answer because the head of the city wants the guards to let in as many mercenaries headed for the ruins as possible. The receptionist acts some man doesn't act too kindly to Tōka, but he changes his tune when Tōka shows that he has some money to pay for a room. Then Keeper it would like to know his name, so Tōka lies and says his name is Hattie Skull. That night, Tōka gets changed and goes to see the city. The people don't seem suspicious of a stranger like him, so Tōka determines that this place is pretty safe. Tōka takes note of the shops around town and goes to have dinner. He eats at a tavern because people talk pretty freely there, so it's great for eavesdropping and gathering information. Some guys nearby talk about all the strongest groups in the nation with the most powerful knights and armies. Among all of them, the guys agreed that the strongest has to be the Black Dragon Knights of the Bacchus Empire. This is because their 5 dragons alone rival an entire army. They also have humanity's strongest and the Hero Slayer. Later that night, Tōka talks to Pigamaru about their future plans. Their top priority is meeting with the person that can read the scroll or forbidden magic. This means finding the Witch of Taboos that is hiding in the land of the golden-eyed monsters. Something Tōka would like to do first, though, is use monster enhancement to improve Pigamaru's abilities. Just then, Tōka remembers hearing that a new floor just found in the mill's ruins, and that is why so many mercenaries have come to this city. Luckily for Tōka, the ingredient needed for monster enhancement comes from the Skeleton King, which resides in the mill's ruins. The next day, The city's leader instructs the mercenaries to explore the new floor of the ruins. He declares that whoever obtains the Dragon Eye Chalice inside the ruins will be awarded 300 gold pieces. They will be paid handsomely for any other treasures, and they can keep any materials they find as well. This is great news for Tōka because he will be able to keep the bone powder from the Skeleton King. The mercenaries are instructed to form lines, and Tōka notices some weird guy bothering a girl. The guy kind of recognizes her and wonders if she's the palette and captain of a certain nation. People around begin to whisper as they begin to think that she's the former knight captain who now has a bounty on her head. The weird guy recalls a time when the knight captain rejected him, but the girl doesn't recall ever meeting him. The guy recognizes her rude treatment as well, and her face is burned into his memory. He plans to expose her by revealing her ears. The knight captain is a high elf, which is pretty rare in this area, so if her ears are pointy then it's definitely her. This guy announces that his name is Monk Drogetti and he removes the girl's hood. He wants praise for catching the captain who has been on the run, but he is shocked when the girl's ears are normal. The girl reveals that her name is Misty Belucas and the guy is mistaken. The guy says that he is a serious grudge against beautiful women anyway, and he will make her pay for embarrassing him. Afterwards, Tōka runs into the girl. He recommends that she be more careful because that guy from earlier was clearly filled with rage and hatred. Misty is used to it and she prefers for people to dislike her rather than trying to get close to her. It's pretty obvious that she's trying to avoid interacting with people, but Tōka has a request. He needs to buy stuff before entering the ruins, but he doesn't want to get swindled by merchants, so he offers to pay for her assistance. Luckily for Tōka, Misty is in need of some cash, so she agrees to help him. They formally introduce themselves, but Tōka can tell that she's using an alias. It's pretty obvious that they both have secrets, so they agree and have to share their real names for now. Misty helps him do some shopping, so Tōka pays her 3 silver coins. Just then Misty collapses and she explains that she hasn't slept well for the past 3 days. She says it's nothing as she leaves, and Tōka decides that it's time to start conquering the ruins of Mills. The second he enters the ruins, he hears some people screaming for their lives. They are being chased by a monster, so Tōka paralyzes and poisons it. He's able to cut right through this smaller version of the monster he fought before, so he realizes that the monsters in the ruins of Disposal were exceptionally tough. A while later, the guys that ran for their lives return and find that someone eliminated the monster. They are shocked though because the monster seems only to have been stabbed once. Nearby, Tōka finds a safe place to take a break and he checks his stats. Just then Tōka overhears the creep from earlier hiring some goons to attack Misty. He wants them to eliminate her, but he tells him to do it slowly if it seems like she's sorry for embarrassing him. This guy's really upset about it, and he cannot rest until he sees her smug face twisting in despair as her life is taken. Drogetti gives them permission to have their way with her, but this just makes Tōka furious. Tōka reveals himself to the thugs, so they turn to eliminate him. They don't fear getting caught either since plenty of people go missing in the ruins. Tōka asks them to spare his life, but Drogetti just mocks him for being a coward. Drogetti goes in to end Tōka, but Tōka quickly paralyzes them. He's now the one taunting them, but Tōka's own villainy makes him want to puke. Then he poisons them and thinks about how eliminating scam like them is oddly satisfying. Drogetti vows to make Tōka pay, but Tōka points out that that is why he's eliminating them right now. The guys are already paralyzed and poisoned, so Tōka leaves them, and they end up getting devoured by monsters. After some more exploring, Tōka reaches the point just before entering the new floor. He decides to take a break before going there and ends up getting 3 hours of sleep. When he continues exploring, he encounters a group called the Saber Tigers. They explain that something strange is happening in the ruins. Monsters have been getting eliminated in strange and in random places. The weirdest part is that they can't figure out what's eliminating them. Both strong and weak monsters alike are falling in a strange manner, and their bodies are found with the pale color. This group thought they were the first to reach the 14th floor, but that is when they found the eliminated monsters. The leader of the Saber Tigers cares a lot about her crew, so she has decided to leave the ruins. Tōka rejects their offer to leave together, so they ask them to pass the message along to anyone he comes across. After they leave, Tōka figures that they were talking about the corpses of the monsters he eliminated with this skill. We then see all the monsters he disposed of, and Tōka realizes that the fear has brought means less competition in the ruins. Eventually, Tōka finds the Dragon Eye Chalice, but it seems to be protected by a gargoyle. Tōka assumes that it will start moving if he takes the chalice, so he paralyzes it. The thing is clearly alive, so he follows it up with some poison. Tōka has Pigamaru watch his back, and he picks up the chalice. The gargoyle succumbs to Tōka's poison, and Misty comes out of nowhere. Tōka gives Misty the chalice, which of course shocks her because the 300 gold rewards is no joke. She wants to give him something in return, but there is nothing Tōka wants. Tōka prepares to leave, but Misty refuses to, just takes overly generous offer. Tōka says that this fake persona he is using is just a really nice guy, but in reality his objective is not the treasure. Tōka surprisingly opens a hidden passageway and explains that his objective is the monster lurking down below. Misty still wants to repay him, so she offers to act as a guard for him, and she promises that she won't hold him back and vows to protect them with their sword skills. Tōka doesn't see any signs of her backing down, so he agrees to let her go with him under some conditions. First is that they continue not to pry into each other's lives. Secondly, Tōka plans to spend a lot of time on the next floor, so she decides to return on her own, then he won't be responsible for her. Misty agrees to his conditions and vows to protect them with their life. Moments later, she proves to be useful as Misty expertly slices up a hideous monster. She is clearly experienced, so Tōka asks her if she knows anything about golden-eyed monsters. Misty explains that they're recognized as the perfect prey for heroes from another world to level up. Tōka doesn't tell her this is actually one of those heroes from another world, so she explains that apparently the heroes don't gain any experience from eliminating other people. Experience points are a feature unique to monsters. According to legend, the Demon King, who is the root of all evil, radiates the special energy known as Demon King Essence. Monsters strongly influenced by it turned golden-eyed. It also unleashes the most extreme instinct for violence that all monsters harbor. After some more exploring, Misty says that she has been sensing the presence of a monster. It's not very strong, so she ignored it, but it's pretty close. It turns out that it was just Pigamaru, so Tōka introduces him to her. Misty is afraid of it at first, but Tōka assures her that it's safe, so she puts the little slime. Misty then hesitant to take a nap, so Tōka convinces her to at least lie down, so she can get some rest. Misty has looked exhausted since the moment they met, so Tōka just uses his ability to put her to sleep. This causes her disguise magic to wear off, and it becomes clear that she is Knight Captain Sarah's Ashrain. Back on their surface, to Black Dragon Knights find the corpses of the 4 Holy Watchers. The Knights determined that they were eliminated in the blink of an eye without any real signs of battle. A massacre like this being done to such skilled men is unthinkable, so the Dragonite leader assumes it was Sarah's Ashrain, the Knight Captain. The story continues. We see Misty wakes up a while later and his shocks have fallen asleep. Tōka pretends to wake up as well, and they are soon attacked by a skeleton king. Tōka can tell that this thing is way stronger than all the other monsters, but Misty assured that they can defeat it if they shatter the silver part below the monster's chin. Misty knows that this beast is really strong, and even the saber tigers wouldn't be able to defeat it. Misty reveals that she's going to use a skill to improve her base physical abilities and create armor. She would like to keep this power of hers a secret though, so she asked Tōka to never tell anyone. Misty then apologizes because of the beast overwhelms her. Then she won't be able to protect Tōka. She tells him that he will have to run, but she is shocked when Tōka easily stops the monster's attack by paralyzing it. He then poisons it and the giant beast is defeated. Tōka takes what he needed from the Skeleton King, and they prepare to head back to the surface. Just then, Pigamaru senses something inside of the Skeleton King's corpse, and Tōka finds something covered in magical cloth. It turns out to be an egg, and Pigamaru wants Tōka to take it home with them. Elsewhere, Tōka's classmates are attacked by skeleton knights. One girl panics like a wimp after having her hand cut off, but her friend assures her that it can be healed. Ayaka tries to find the courage to defend everyone, but Oyamata and Takuto arrive to show off their elite control that they have over their abilities. Ayaka saves the handless girl from getting dusted, and Takuto announces that he has now reached level 24. A while later, soldiers in charge of the ruins are shocked to see the Misty was able to obtain the Dragon Eye Chalice. Tōka leaves as he got when he came for, but Misty wants to speak with him. She will be receiving her reward for the chalice tomorrow and will be staying in town for another day. Tōka would like to speak with her alone, so they agreed to meet again later. Misty once again thanks him for the chalice, but our boy says it's not necessary. That night, Tōka uses the ingredients from the Skeleton King to make a monster enhancement solution. Tōka will have to use it on Pigamaru later though, because Misty has arrived. Tōka reveals that he wants to employ her as his bodyguard, as his goal is to find the Witch of Taboos. His destination is the land of golden-eyed monsters, so he's expecting plenty of swarming monster attacks. Tōka would feel much better with someone watching his back, and Misty proved that she's the perfect fit when they were in the ruins. Helping Tōka would be convenient for her because she was heading in that direction anyway, but she is still hesitant. Tōka gives her time to decide and shocks her when he reveals that he knows her real identity. He also comes clean and admits that he put her to sleep with his ability, but he promises to keep her secret. Misty then reveals that she uses the part of the spirits to conceal her identity, but it requires her to offer a per desire for sleep in exchange. This is why she reverts back to normal whenever she sleeps. She has a lot more flexibility in her travels, now that the Holy Watchers are gone, so she thanks Tōka for taking them out. Misty reveals her identity as Sarah's Ash Rain, and she now trusts Tōka, so he tells her his real name. Tōka would rather keep this a secret, but he thinks about how this is a way to further bind her to him using trust. Sarah agrees to be his bodyguard, so Tōka gives her a stone as payment. Tōka doesn't think it's a big deal, but Sarah is startled and explains that this item is a blue dragon gem. These gems are only rarely born with legendary blue dragons. There aren't any on the market right now, and its value easily surpasses the reward for the Dragon Eye Chalice. Sarah doesn't think he should just give away something so valuable, and he realizes that she's too nice for her own good. Sarah tries to give it back, but Tōka forces her to take it and tells her to do whatever she wants with it. They agree to use their fake names in public, and Sarah explains that there's still a lot Tōka doesn't know about her. She reveals that she is on the run, but Tōka doesn't want to pry into her past. Tōka only wants her to make sure she does a good job as his bodyguard. The next day, some guys talk poorly about how Sarah was seen leaving Tōka's room last night. Tōka says to just ignore the degenerates, and she's impressed by how mature he is. Tōka brings up the topic of forbidden magic, and Sarah knows plenty about it. It's magic that forbidden by the goddess, and they are pretty much ancient spells. This is good news for Tōka, since them being forbidden by her means that the spells are dangerous to the goddess. After breakfast, Sarah leaves for her reward reception, and they agree to meet again later. Tōka goes to an isolated part of the forest and tells Pigamaru that it's time to try out the enhancement experiment. At the reception, the town leader reveals that he has invited a mage specialized in breaking illusions, so that they can ensure the authenticity of the Dragon Eye Chalice. Sarah is shocked because she wasn't told about this, and the mage enters the room. A while later, Tōka waits for Sarah, but he is concerned because she is late. Back with Ayaka, the goddess tells her that she will be able to heal the girl that lost her hand. The goddess can't use her heal magic on just anyone, so Sakura is lucky that she's a B-class. Ayaka surprised when the goddess knows that she won't be joining Takuto group, and now Yukin explains that she doesn't get along with Takuto. The goddess calls her selfish though because her behavior is ruining the harmony of her hero group. Ayaka objects, but the goddess takes responsibility for not guiding her correctly. Ayaka apologizes for being selfish because she just can't side with Takuto, but she vows to fulfill her duty as an S-class hero in her own way. The goddess is glad to hear it, so she decides to entrust the students who couldn't pass their trials to Ayaka. If an S-class like Ayaka trains them, and then the goddess assured that they will become as strong as 100 men. Ayaka have thought that this issue was already settled, but the goddess reveals that she just received the royal decree stating that all heroes that can't fight must be eliminated. These heroes will be tossed to the ruins if Ayaka doesn't take them, so she has no choice but to agree. The goddess warns that the heroes might become a hindrance, and Ayaka thanks her for her advice as she leaves. When alone though, the goddess is clearly not happy, and she calls Ayaka a really bad word. Back at the inn, Tōka wonders if Sarah's just ditched them. Pigamaru concerned though, and Tōka has a feeling that something is wrong. Sarah's could have just declined the job if she didn't want to go, and it would take too much effort for her to deceive him. Just then Tōka overhears some guys talking about how the female paladin ran into the dark forest and it's time to hunt her. As if that weren't bad enough, the Black Dragon Knights appear as they're headed to the dark forest. In the forest, Sarah sees that the Black Dragon is a founder. Sarah uses a powerful attack to take one down and follows that up by striking down another dragon. The mage from earlier disoriented her, so she's not able to transform until she recovers. Luckily for her, though she is strong enough to take down another Dragon Knight, it still takes a lot of effort to take down one of these normal knights, so Sarah's furious from the higher ranked ones are. Just then a dragon threatens to attack her, but she knows it's just a decoy. Sarah goes after her real target, and he introduces himself as Gizzen, the vice captain of the squad, led by Sir Orban of the Five Dragons. Gizzen declares that her life ends now, and Sarah determines that she will have to manage fighting with her available spirits. Sarah thought that their goal was to capture her, but Gizzen reveals that Orban's squad is under secret orders to eliminate her. Gizzen proves to be too strong for her, and she ends up falling to the ground. Sarah tells him to just eliminate her, but Gizzen wants to show her what it's like to be with a man first. Just then Tōka comes out of nowhere and paralyzes Gizzen. Tōka has paralyzed the dragon as well, and he scolds Sarah's for not meeting up with him. Tōka then poisons the Dragon Knight, but he changes it to the non-lethal version. Tōka then puts the guy to sleep and acknowledges that if he travels with Sarah's, then he will be pursued by the Black Dragon Knights too. Sarah's assumes that he doesn't want her to come with him anymore, so she offers to give back the gam. She knows that she will just cause him trouble, but she is shocked when Tōka gives her something. Sarah's is then at a loss for words when it turns out to be a whole bunch of blue dragon gems. Tōka declares that it would be a pain to find another guard, and Sarah's is shocked when he tells her to take off her clothes. And with that, we have come to the end of this part. Stay tuned for next part. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel and activate the notification bell to receive all the latest updates.